This video is sponsored by Ear Jobs. They're as awful as they sound.
Are you asking for my opinion?
I suppose I am.
Ah, Star Trek, a series defined by its exploration of space, cultures, and the very depths of the soul. Sometimes that comes in the form of fighting off terrifying creatures, coming face to face with godlike beings, and, more often than not, getting freaky with someone with a messed up forehead or two ding-dongs. It is the original sex-positive, gay ship-baiting, postmodern, post-communism show about how free people can be when they don't have to worry about money. Turns out, folks will still sign up to be cooks and engineers and tactical officers because even without money, you've gotta find something to do on a Wednesday morning. Star Trek is one interesting beast, as it can go from having meaningful conversations about things like honor, duty, love, war, courage, and sacrifice, but then just as easily slip into hilarious moments of camaraderie or the depths of unfathomable horror. Character dynamics will change, relationships will grow or fall apart, and there is never any feeling that we're just sticking with one main character, or at least that sort of mindset really fell away once the Next Generation happened and showed that Star Trek can be more than just the Kirk, Spock, McCoy show. It is a series that has become very close to my heart over the last 6 years, and while I didn't grow up with it, it has already brought me too many moments of joy to count. I would never try to call myself an expert on Star Trek, as there are still many different series and movies that I have yet to catch up with, but as an intermediary fan, I can still hold my own in a few casual conversations. And hey, before you condemn me for being a fake fan, I know what a Tulaberry is, which will definitely get you through pretty much any episode you want to watch. They just come up so often. So no, I can't really lecture you much about the behind-the-scenes goings-on or obscure trivia about the cast or crew, but what I can do is break down plot lines, express my appreciation and joy for the series, and hopefully reinforce your own enjoyment of it, or even better, encourage you to try the series out for yourself. However, before I can submerge myself in all the lovely feelings I have for Star Trek, I must first purge myself of one particular episode. It is the only one that I actively dislike, but, just saying dislike is being too kind. I would actually go so far as to say that I frickin' hate this episode. And oh sure, there are shows that I find boring, repetitive, unnecessary, flat, or just ones that fell a bit short of their potential, and of course there's definitely some that I cringe at, ugh. But miraculously, there's only ever been one that has actually made me mad. And it comes from one of the 90s Trek shows, which I consider to be the true golden age of Star Trek. And I don't say that to diss the original series, I really like the original series, but boy are they a slow-paced bunch. Whew. They're still great, of course, still legendary, still groundbreaking, but the 90s had more Star Trek and in more variety than you could handle. And it may come as a surprise that my most hated episode comes from this era. I can already hear people in the comments saying, "Ha, you think an episode from 90s Star Trek is bad? Have you seen Star Trek Discovery or Picard? There's some truly abysmal stuff in there." Ugh. To which I will put my hands up and answer actually no, I haven't gotten to those more modern series yet, but because my expectations for those shows are so low, so bottom of the barrel, that even if they are stupid and horrible beyond belief, it wouldn't surprise me. And because it wouldn't surprise me, it wouldn't get much of a reaction. It would be like hearing that a murderer stole a car. I mean, like, okay, stealing a car is bad, but I'm already acclimated to what that person is like. They're a murderer. Stealing the car is not the thing that's gonna make me go, they're actually not that great of a person. It's like hearing Stalin used to litter. Like, okay, I wasn't much on the fence about Stalin until then, but damn, I guess that litter thing really tipped the scale. So yes, much like a murderer or Stalin, I have a pretty low opinion of modern Trek. But that means that modern Trek can only impress me if it's not absolute horrible awfulness, then hey, I'm gonna be impressed, which is kind of a nice situation to be in. If I'm disappointed, then well, I just expected that. Everything else is just a treat. If it's not just horrible, then yay! But this one episode from the 90s, oh my god. It was like living with a spouse for several years, really getting comfortable and learning all their little quirks, falling in love earnestly all the way through, and then all of a sudden, one day they just up and serve you a piece of cake that's made out of dog crap. That feels personal. I go, god damn, I thought I knew what we had here. What the hell? I spent the last 4 years rubbing your damn feet every night, and you go and pull the old Snoopy surprise on me? I don't think so. Ugh. So yes, before I do any future reviews of Star Trek, I have to talk about the time they served me actual crap and told me it was devil's food cake. I feel like I'm in Dante's Divine Comedy. I can't get to heaven until I purge myself in the fires of hell. And before we get into it, I have to ask, what series do you think this comes from? Diplomacy Sex Party, Ensign Adventure, The Search for Coffee, or A Farewell to Arms? I'll give you a second. I'll just think about it for a moment. Time's up. It is Star Trek Voyager. Ooh, Voyager, a series that I greatly enjoy. This is the 90s Star Trek that seems the most divisive among fans. People either seem to love it or hate it. But me, I'm actually pretty positive on it. In fact, I would go so far as to say that Voyager has the strongest first season of any Star Trek. There's just so much good and interesting and weird stuff in here. It seemed to know exactly what it wanted to be right away. The Next Generation really struggled to find its footing in Season 1, and Deep Space Nine began with characters that were a bit unlikable, or at least pretty hostile to like everybody around them. Lots of setting the stage in that one, you know? Deep Space Nine did have the benefit of allowing those sort of like hostile characters to grow into absolutely fantastic people, and it kept us invested in how they grew, but rewatching the first season of Deep Space Nine can feel pretty aggressive. When I rewatched the first season of Deep Space Nine, I kind of go like, no, you guys are supposed to be friends. Why aren't you friends yet? Oh, I hate it. I hate all the fighting. But Voyager, man, they hit the ground running, throwing the crew into the deep end of the galaxy and forcing them into immediate, interesting conflicts, surprising us with crazy new alien races, which got the crew to begin growing and bonding immediately. However, in the fourth season, the show decided to cut one of the main characters, Kes, in favor of a new character, 7 of 9, a human freed from the Borg. Gosh, I wonder why they brought on 7 of 9. I can't imagine what Rick Berman would have seen in this character that he didn't see in Kes. And if you don't know what the Borg are, they're basically a hive mind collection of robot zombies, also known as Taylor Swift fans. Kidding, I'm kidding, just having a little fun with you guys. The real Borg are the Five Nights at Freddy's fans for a number of reasons. Gosh, I'm really starting this off strong. Taylor Swift fans will give me the old Bobby Hill special. Five Nights at Freddy's fans will throw their juice boxes at me. All I need to do now is pick on Warhammer fans, and we'll have a 3-way death match over who gets to crush my skull. While we wait for that battle royale to finish, let's get down to brass tacks. Voyager has an episode, this just special episode, that I consider so foolish, so poorly written, so badly thought out, and so frickin' ham-fisted. Oh, it makes my mind explode. Worse still, it makes nonsensical arguments while also attempting to speak about a real-world issue that is completely disconnected from the story they've created. Amazingly, I never hear anyone speak badly about this one either. There's even some people who consider it really good, which just baffles me. I am of course speaking about the reviled, the repulsive, the wrath-inducing nightmare that is Retrospect. So here we go. Let's see what the worst of Star Trek has to offer. It opens with the Voyager crew blowing the absolute shit out of this poor Hexagon. Poor fella, he was just lost on his way to Sesame Street. This bit of geometrical murder was orchestrated by this guy, Koven, who has one of the most brittle-looking nose ridges in Star Trek, which is really saying something for these shows. It looks downright painful if you ask me, like a bit of exposed bone. Ugh. Koven is a weapons dealer from a nearby planet and is selling Voyager some big guns, which he says is needed to deal with the other ships in the area. And it's pretty clear to me that he's the one who's been supplying these weapons to anybody who will buy them, so he knows his stuff about what's out there. Koven's a bit of a ball buster, making a hard sell to Captain Janeway, establishing himself as not the most likable fella right off the bat. He is very adversarial, and obviously doing his best to make a good sale for himself.
It's not wise to travel this region without adequate defenses. I've seen scuttled ships with more firepower than Voyager.
I'm sure you have.
And I want you to remember that. I really want you to hold on to that fact. Koven is a weapons dealer, a guy who deals with dangerous equipment. After making a tentative deal with Janeway, he heads down to engineering to speak with 7 of 9, who Janeway notes has been, quote, behaving herself. She is referencing how 7 of 9 has been attempting to fit into Janeway's idea of what a reformed Borg person should be like, which always felt a bit off to me. It always felt to me like Janeway was trying to mold 7 into Janeway's preference of what a good person is, instead of allowing 7 to develop as her own person. It's less of a, like, let's see how you grow situation, and much more of a, like, why won't you listen to me, you stupid little brat? Ugh. Anyway, Chakotay tells 7 that she's been picked to work with Kovan because she's been pretty good with him in the past. They've had a few days here in the area, and Kovan and her seem to have a certain rapport. And I'm not one to doubt Chakotay, as he is probably the most level-headed guy in the whole show, but it really doesn't seem like 7 and Kovan have anything like of a working relationship here. In fact, when we get to engineering, Kovan literally sits over 7's shoulder, yells into her ear about how she's not configuring stuff the way he wants, and attempts to shove her out of the way.
No. The subroutines need to be arranged in cascading sequence. Let me show you.
In response to this assault, 7 gives him a fierce uppercut, sending Kovan sprawling. Dang, what an opener. And maybe that punch was a bit uncalled for, but he did put his hands on her first. You know, if Kovan is really trying to make a sale here, then he is not acting like it. He is treating his customers super badly. I wonder if there could be a reason for that. So Kovan is taken to sickbay, where B'Elanna, the best girl of the show, points out that Kovan got physical with 7 first. And in response, he says a bunch of BS like he gently nudged her aside and that she would have killed him if she'd had the chance. It is a defensive stance and something that we clearly saw wasn't true. That was not a nudge. And here's where Janeway takes on the role of a sad parent rather than a captain and drags 7 into her office. She's not mad, she's disappointed. Oh, 7, how could you do this after everything we've done for you? Janeway even asks 7 what punishment she feels is appropriate for this kind of situation. Oh. And in case you can't tell, I think Janeway comes off as pretty condescending here, putting me even more in 7's corner.
I think we've established that traditional disciplinary actions don't work with you. The question is, what will? But you have to start learning the difference between having an impulse and acting on it. Does that make any sense to you?
Kovan is obviously bending the truth just to suit his innocence, and now Janeway is taking his side. We saw him shove her aside, and he's trying to spin it as, oh, it was just a nudge? That is a bunch of bullshit. So already we're put into this defensive stance where we want to say, hey, no, what 7's getting here is a raw deal. Everything seems to be going against 7. Kovan's story doesn't match. Janeway is lecturing 7 as if she's the one who did something super wrong, like she attacked him unprovoked. It's just already okay. After that tongue lashing from Janeway, we head back to sickbay, where the doctor, who I'll just say for the uninitiated is a holographic man, begins to offer his condolences to 7 and does his best to back up Janeway's whole be patient and don't lose your cool approach. Which is good advice, I suppose. You can't be pissing off all of the weapons dealers in the area, even the ones that assault your crew, apparently. While examining 7, she undergoes a series of flashbacks to something. Certain visuals begin to get thrown up, which sends 7 into a near panic attack, which is extremely unusual for someone with Borg physiology, who are usually very calm and analytical people. The doctor calls Janeway into sickbay and says that there is a substance in 7's brain that can repress memories. And let's listen to how he describes this substance.
I've detected a high concentration of biogenic amines in 7's hippocampus, a substance I haven't noticed before. It's blocking several portions of her memory center.
Do you know where it came from?
No, but it seems to be dissipating.
To me, that doesn't sound like something that's naturally occurring. It sounds as if it was placed there, as if by an outside source. With growing concern, Janeway gives the doctor the go-ahead to try some regression psychiatric techniques, which he jumps at the opportunity to do. These techniques are part of a new program he's been developing for himself, which is not uncommon. The doctor does tend to sort of explore and see what new things he can add to himself to improve both his personality and his service to the crew. And now I really need to ask, why isn't Neelix doing this? I mean, I get it, he's not technically a psychiatrist, but he's the morale officer. He's supposed to be compassionate and shore up people's attitudes. Who better to compassionately ask some questions and get to the heart of something that clearly is upsetting 7? And oh sure, I definitely agree that the doctor should be in the room to observe just in case something goes weird or wrong, but it is very odd that they chose to forget about Neelix here. And I have to confess, I actually really like Neelix. I am a Neelix fan, I'm not a Neelix hater, and I wish that the writers had been more generous to him and included him in more episodes like this. The way they treat him often and the fact they just forget about him is very lame. Anyway, here in the cargo bay, the doctor begins to ask Seven some questions about how she feels, about what she sees, what she remembers in her mind's eye. And it is very important, critical to examine how exactly the doctor is questioning Seven. Because when people talk about this episode, they tend to focus on the doctor's line of questionings as if he's coaching her into saying specific lines. But what does he actually say? In this first scene, where we get the most important bit of information, the doctor is asking open-ended prompts. Things like this.
Describe the first image that enters your mind. How does the tricorder make you feel?
I'm uneasy.
About what? Why does it disturb you?
I'm afraid it will hurt me.
Is there anything else there that causes you to anticipate pain?
It's Coven.
What is he doing? Seven?
I didn't recall this before.
Recall what?
And on her own, using her own words and knowledge and all of that stuff, Seven notes that Coven performed a surgical procedure on her, removing her Borg probes, specifically saying that Coven violated her. Yikes. And I have read that the writers did not intend for this to be a assault, let's go with assault analogy, but that is already how it feels. If they wanted to avoid that comparison, then maybe they should have chosen to center this episode around someone other than Seven, who is the focus of a number of romantic plot lines and is made to wear an outfit with built-in boob pockets. It feels like they tried to write an assault plot, but then did this clever wink and a nudge, thinking they're so smart, saying, "Oh no guy, we're just strapping her to a table, probing her with painful devices, and filling her body with this strange liquid while also extracting her essence. Nothing suspicious or sexual about that, you weirdo." So whatever they intended, I would say that this analogy is about as close to this particular kind of assault as you can get without actually saying the R word. After the commercial break, the Doctor guides Seven into exploring her repressed memories, where she and Tom Paris were on the planet testing out weapons. This recollection happens in one unbroken sequence, with Seven continually recalling specific phrases and details. She even notes exact scientific data and measurements.
4 microsecond recharge cycle, 10-kilometer range.
What do you think?
72% fragmentation, 28% vaporization.
And in this recollection, Coven then takes Seven into his lab and, in this series of events, Coven points his weapon at Seven, shoots her, and she awakens to find herself strapped to a table. The Doctor asks, "Did they scan you?" To which Seven then recalls this horrible gel stuff going into her and a device going into her neck, with Coven even taking her eye implant off. And I really want you to note here that Seven is bringing up the details of these procedures and the images on her own, with the Doctor only asking the vaguest of questions.
Then concentrate on that away mission. Focus on the first image that enters your mind. Describe it for me.
Coven took me to a small laboratory.
Describe it.
What are you doing? He turned the weapon on me.
He fired? What happened next? Concentrate. See the laboratory in your mind. Was Coven still in the room with you? What did they do to you? Did they scan you?
Some of the implants in my arm were activated.
Which ones? Can you be more specific?
I was powerless, unable to stop them.
You couldn't be expected to. You were restrained. Then what happened? I'll inform the captain.
And in her recollection, Seven sees her probes removed and placed into a living subject who gets the Taylor Swift treatment. Seven then finds herself back in her original position, with Coven using a skin regenerator on her, specifically on where she was supposedly shot, in her hand. The Doctor goes to Janeway, outraged and wanting Coven's head. He is definitely flowing in a river of emotions, not an unbiased party at all. But then we get a more sober perspective from Tuvok, who reminds us that traumatic memories can be unreliable, which is true. But the Doctor correctly points out that Seven's memories have been suppressed by an outside means, and this trauma only happened a few days ago, hardly a thing that would be difficult to recall. And here is something that is critical to take note of. Tuvok points out that human memory is not the most reliable thing in the universe, and you know what, buddy? When you're right, you are right, and you are indeed 100% correct. Human memory is indeed quite fallible. And yet, that is ignoring a very, very important factor. Seven is not just a human. She's not just any old person. She has Borg implants in her that simply cannot be removed. In fact, just 3 episodes after this, Seven says the following about her memories.
Before I leave, I would like to know why you were reading the captain's personal logs.
I wasn't.
I saw the pad. It was unmistakably the captain's logs.
You're confused. You couldn't possibly have seen anything.
You know I possess an eidetic memory. I require only seconds to commit what I see to memory. Would you like me to quote the passage you were reading?
And now there is a debate on whether eidetic memory actually exists in real life, but that isn't something Seven had when she was human. This isn't something that, supposedly Seven grew up being eidetic. This is an ability that was given to her by the Borg. So yes, actually, she does remember everything perfectly. So let's quickly review here. There is a memory suppressant in Seven, which almost certainly came from an outside source and is quickly dissipating, meaning that memories are beginning to resurface on their own without any prompting. Just there they are, they're coming back to the surface. And if anybody was going to have the strongest memory capabilities possible, it would be Seven. When Coven is brought to Janeway's office and confronted with Seven's accusation, Coven begins to freak out, getting defensive and agitated. He loudly and proudly declares his innocence, saying that he has no one to defend his rights, while Seven has a whole ship full of friends that are willing to protect her, which I would say is hardly accurate given how Janeway tends to treat Seven.
Should I give her complete access to the engineering control systems?
I'm ready to give her some latitude. She's been behaving herself lately.
But hey, let's give him some sympathy. Coven's planet's legal system is already against him, to the point where if you're even accused of a misdeed, your career is over. Coven's planet depends on trade with other species, so pissing off outsiders is a big no-no. How does Coven put it?
You will have the opportunity to refute any charges. It won't matter. Once they're made, the damage is done. I won't be trusted any longer. I'll be ruined.
And obviously, childishly obviously, this is intended to mirror famous people, or at least people in positions of power, that get accused of crimes. These are people in careers where your reputation is everything. Even an accusation is deadly to your livelihood. And while that is a valid concern for social life, this is a case of the law, and as we'll come to see, Seven deserves to have her day in court. With the threat of a formal investigation upcoming, we get back to sickbay and see that Seven is beginning to get over her anger, which the doctor says is unhealthy. In an effort to get her to unleash her feelings, the doctor goes overboard and hypes her up, throwing back the word violation a number of times.
Coven attacked you. Violated your rights as an individual. He violated that individuality.
He violated me.
You violated her trust.
One might even say that he is intentionally triggering her, trying to get her really riled up. And while it is tempting to say that the doctor is being completely unfair in drawing out her emotions, given how badly she was frightened earlier, it isn't unreasonable to think that she is suppressing her true feelings. But I don't exactly know what benefit comes from getting her this pissed off, as there is no avenue for her to express these feelings. However, I think we can all say that this next part is very, very wrong and the doctor shouldn't have done it. He says that Seven will feel much better when Coven is punished. In fact, he promises that Coven will face justice, which gets this just really weird and super flat line delivery from Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9's actress.
I believe I'm beginning to experience anger. Anger toward Coven.
Okay, wow, sure, I believe you. You seem so mad. Now, obviously, I strongly disagree with how the doctor is going about this. It is fine to have an advocate on your side, and getting support from a friend is even better, but the doctor is going to be at least partially in charge of presenting evidence. And encouraging revenge is not the rule of law, it is mob rule. Promising that she will feel better when Coven is punished is setting her up for disappointment. Bad doctor, bad. This is the point where he should have recused himself from the investigation, as he is clearly biased against Coven, and unfortunately, I guess the doctor is just the only one who can examine the lab for proof of medical tomfoolery. I don't know why Janeway or Tuvok let him be here, but whatever. In Coven's lab, there doesn't seem to be any medical table or tools that could be immediately used to mess with someone. Oh sure, they could have been modified and then changed back, but that may never have happened at all. Coven has either covered his tracks really well because he knows the amount of shit he'd be in if he were ever caught, or this is all just a weird misunderstanding. I guess we'll have to find out, right? Faced with the prospect of a formal investigation and backed into a corner, Coven pulls a freaking gun, teleports to his ship, and flees, losing Voyager. And it is implied that Coven is running because he's been treated unfairly, but it is also perfectly possible that he knows he's guilty and decided to book it. Him running might be the act of a desperate man, but it might also be a criminal trying to escape consequences. While searching for him, the gang investigates whether the nanoprobes found on Coven's table will regenerate on their own, or if they're only doing so because Coven experimented on them. What? There's probes on the table? Oh, whoa! Oh, okay, you know what, hold on. We'll get there. Let's pace ourselves. We'll get there. If the probes activate on their own, then supposedly there is no cause to investigate. And they need this proof as evidence because, as Janeway puts it,
we don't want to make accusations against an innocent man. We have to do everything we can to find some concrete evidence.
Okay, whoa, hold on, cause I need to talk about this. This is where I start to go crazy. What the hell is this logic? What is happening here? You already have evidence. Physical evidence. Tuvok, are you just not on your game right now? Let's just pause and go over the facts. The facts, not memories, not personal accounts, things that are not in dispute. Coven, the weapons dealer, shot Seven. Accidentally or not, he has admitted that he shot her.
We've confirmed that Seven was exposed to an intense Thoron discharge.
She was. After the rifle's power cell overloaded, we reported the accident immediately. We were both startled for a moment. And after I apologized for the accident, she asked if I had a dermal regenerator, which I did. And I used it on her arm, the one with the mechanical implants.
My examination of the rifle is equally inconclusive. It may have overloaded accidentally. Or not.
In his series of events, the gun just happened to go off and hit her. Okay, fine. Imagine if you went to a firing range and, oh, guess what? I guess your instructor just happened to shoot you in the foot. It was an accident, and hey, you know what? Hey, let's say you're buying a gun. Just buying a gun from some guy, and the seller happens to shoot you. And oh sure, you're bandaged up and there's no permanent damage, but that is negligent behavior at least, no? That alone is probably reason enough for the person, the seller, weapons dealer, whatever, to lose their job, even if it was an accident. And Coven says that the gun discharged on its own, but one of the most important rules of weapons safety is that you do not point a gun at anybody, even if you think it is unloaded. That is day one stuff.
Please. I never hurt your crew member. And after I apologized for the accident, she asked if I had a dermal regenerator, which I did.
Even if you apologize, the person can still press charges and an investigation can still take place. What are you talking about? What's even more damning, as I mentioned before, is that there are nanoprobes in Coven's lab. No question, they are there and they are active. Borg tech. Some of the most dangerous shit in the galaxy is in a weapons dealer's lab.
There are a number of Borg nanoprobes on the surface of this table.
Regardless of how they came to be there, either because they were extracted or just came out because of the accident, there are still probes present. And how did Janeway put it at the beginning of the episode? What did she say specifically?
You may not realize how dangerous Borg technology can be. If you've taken even a single nanoprobe, I need to know about it right now.
There are a number of Borg nanoprobes on the surface of this table.
We don't want to make accusations against an innocent man. We have to do everything we can to find some concrete evidence.
Oh, but now this isn't enough evidence? Well, now you're just moving the bar here, Janeway. You've got the probes. He admitted to shooting her. That is a literal smoking gun. Hell, even if Coven is telling the truth and it was all just a genuine accident, we still need to check to see if he snagged up some probes anyway. That is a temptation that Coven shouldn't have to deal with and that we clearly don't have to trust him with. If he's an innocent man, then we don't want him to turn into a guilty one by dangling this Borg stuff in his face. The episode is acting like the entire case depends on whether Seven's memories are accurate, and if they aren't, well, then there's absolutely no reason to even look into it. But Coven had the opportunity, the ability, and the motivation to commit the crime. If he got his hands on Borg tech, then that would mean big bucks for his career. He could develop all kinds of nasty goodies. The show is treating the accusation itself as a form of guilt, and maybe that's how the trading society on Covid's planet works, but I'm sorry, dude, you earned this investigation even without Seven's recollection. The plot is behaving as if you need 100% indisputable evidence to even begin an investigation, which is simply not true. And oh sure, there definitely needs to be probable cause. No one here is advocating for random cases to be opened up just based on suspicions. But if guilt could be completely and irrevocably established before the investigation begins, then why would we need an investigation at all? And this is where, to me at least, the episode really shows its true colors, because if this was just about like weapons and Borg stuff, then this would have gone an entirely different way. Instead, this is, without question, exactly what sexual assault survivors go through, and not just women either. This stuff can happen to anybody. Proving that someone assaulted you is extremely difficult to do, which is why you always want to start preserving any evidence that you can get your hands on and make as big of a paper trail as you can. Once the assault happens, call someone right away and tell them, show them how upset you are, live in that emotion, start building your case from the moment it happens. But Seven, as I will remind everybody, has been influenced by an outside memory suppressant, one that the doctor couldn't identify. So, where'd that outside memory suppressant come from? Is it something that Seven's biology just happens to do to spare her from bad memories? Don't make me laugh. The Borg don't care about suppressing bad memories. You're just a puppet. That's part of the hell of being a Borg. You get torn apart, modified, hollowed out. Seven got her eye ripped out when she was a child, for God's sakes. She remembers that. But supposedly, she doesn't remember Coven taking out some probes and putting them in a dude. Oh, that was so awful, so mind-breaking that she just had to shut it all out. She goes through worse shit on screen, for God's sakes. Why doesn't she suppress all the stuff that she goes through throughout the series? And don't get me wrong, her, surgical assault is bad, but nothing is worse than what she experienced when she was with the Borg. So if this is not a response to trauma, if her brain isn't trying to preserve her, and it came from an outside source, then where? Where did it come from? Maybe from the weapons dealer who has access to all kinds of, crazy shit? Ugh! But let's drop the pretext. Let's get to the very heart of the matter. Do I think that Coven did it? Well, here's the thing, and it may surprise you, but that doesn't matter at all. Guilt or innocence is irrelevant at this stage. We aren't trying to establish guilt. We are trying to see if there is enough material here to even conduct an investigation.
Coven, there is sufficient evidence here to detain you pending official proceedings. No.
There are a number of Borg nanoprobes on the surface of this table.
And yes, there are certainly problems with every legal system. Innocent people go to jail, guilty people go free, but that possibility of something going wrong doesn't mean you throw out everything and just let people do whatever they want. Guilt is what we're trying to prove with an investigation. It's what you do to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. It is one of the founding statutes of a civilized society that you have the right to defend yourself. And remember, that comes in the form of defending yourself against an accusation, yes, but also using the law to correct an injustice perpetrated against you. And while people will definitely use the justice system unfairly, and there are certainly cases of innocent people's reputations being ruined, the only way we know about those instances of innocence is through the act of investigation. Vindication. Actual vindication that you actually were innocent can only come through an inspection of the facts. You know what would have been a much better way of doing this kind of story? Make it about the Doctor. He's a hologram with memories that can literally be rewritten, scripted to whatever someone wants. Or hell, you know what's a fun way to do this? Make the entire crew experience false memories. Maybe they get invited down to Coven's planet, eat some bad mushrooms that cause some crazy hallucinations in humans, which then starts to create contradictory stories. Then, the Doctor, who isn't affected by any of this stuff because he doesn't have to eat, then has to try to be supportive to everybody and believe contradictory stories. I mean, hey, maybe Janeway even starts to pull rank and says, I'm the captain and it doesn't matter how crazy my story is, you have to believe me. We could get way more into the subject of personal biases and who we believe and whatnot if this was something just broader, more of a mystery, instead of focusing on one incident that, by Seven's own account, has a number of intense and vivid details. But Janeway hand-waves this away, suggesting that Seven's memories could be getting mixed up with a Borg surgery where they once had to remove probes from her while she was still part of the collective. And I guess that may be possible that for some reason the Borg had to pull nanoprobes from Seven, but they would have no reason to strap her down. Do you understand what the Borg do? They would just say, hey you, drone, we need some probes from you. Just stand still, yoink, and that's it. But hey, what if she's just remembering an assimilation she witnessed? Well, that is ludicrous. That is more BS and speculative than anything Seven has said. And if we're gonna get on the Doctor's ass for coaching Seven about these memories, then we have to do the same thing for Janeway, who is practically gaslighting Seven. She is saying, oh, Seven, please, baby, those thoughts you were having, surely they must have just been when you were a part of the Borg. That was when you, what was it again? Assimilated people? Ripped away their humanity? That must have been what it was. God, I hate it so much, oh God!
There's no doubt in my mind that you believe what you're saying, but is it possible, just possible, that the memories you and the Doctor recovered aren't accurate? You undoubtedly witnessed other victims being assimilated. Could that be what you're remembering?
What sense does that even make? That's like a doctor getting shot and then going, oh, you know what? One time I was doing surgery on somebody, but after I got shot, I misremembered the situation where, oh, suddenly it's not just me performing the surgery, I'm in the patient's position. I'm looking up and watching myself get, like, cut open. Oh, that must be what happened. Like, that is so random. What the fuck connection does that have to anything? From Coven's story of the events, she just got shot, fell down, got up. Where is this whole, like, oh, you know what? You getting shot? That definitely reminded you when you got assimilated. I mean, Janeway, you must be from One Piece or something, cause that is one hell of a stretch. So the very foundation of this case is not only flawed, but it is trying to paint both Seven and the Doctor as bad guys. It's attempting to show Seven as this hysterical woman with no grounds for making noise about her fears, and the Doctor as some sort of out-of-control physician who's doing whatever he can to ruin poor Coven's life. And this is where I need to mention the real-world events that influenced this plot. Around the late 80s and early 90s, some cases of so-called repressed memories and satanic panic began coming out. These happened particularly at daycares, most notably the McMartin Preschool and the Fells Acre Day School, where the teachers were accused of sexually abusing kids and practicing satanic rituals on them. But the psychiatrists and prosecution who spoke with the children were eventually discredited, the accusation being proved to have been coerced by coaching, tainting the investigation. In the Fells Acre Day School case, the prosecutor, Richard Beck, commented that coaxing allegations out of the children had been like, quote, getting blood from a stone. These are the kind of cases that were in the minds of the writers when coming up with Retrospect. They wanted to do a story about repressed memory phenomena and how trials can become biased, unfair, and lead to false imprisonments. But the thing is, those cases were about children, not grown adults, and I think a lot of people suffering from PTSD wish they could have their memories repressed. It's not just like, oh, something bad happened, I'm not sure exactly what it was. PTSD causes moments of extreme panic that flash you back and make you relive those memories in extreme detail. And I should know, I was in a horrible car accident that ended up wrecking both vehicles. My car caught on fire, okay? And sometimes while I'm driving, I still get freaked out by those memories, which is just, like, horrible to deal with. I hate that shit. And besides, the repressed memory manipulation thing doesn't even connect to what happened in this episode. The Doctor didn't provide Seven with a script or badger her for hours on end. He asked open-ended questions that she promptly and on her own recalled. Spontaneous and exact details were given. He wasn't sweating her, he wasn't goading her into giving her that, the details that would put away that evil jerk. The Doctor only got upset when she described in great detail how she was hurt. And yes, he definitely encouraged her anger, her emotional response, but he did not invent or feed any of the details to her, so nothing about this works. If it is recovered memories, then she has recovered them on her own. The comparison to the real life whole, recovered memory cases not only doesn't square, but it is in the complete opposite direction of what is happening here. Seven is resisting an outside influence and reclaiming what appears to be a legitimate experience of being attacked. It's Janeway that's making her doubt her own thoughts. It's Janeway that's saying, well, Seven, even if you remember that, how can you trust your own memories? Like, what the fuck is that? How do you mess up this plot that bad? It is nonsense. It is awful, 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 awful writing. And by the way, once Janeway sees that there is a possibility that Coven may be innocent, she decides to do anything she can to save him, which would be fine if he wasn't threatening them with violence. In fact, once they find him, he immediately begins to fire on their ship, doing some real damage. He's a weapons dealer, remember, so he's got the firepower to really mess with Voyager. The magistrate from Coven's planet is there, begging Coven to stand down, which he adamantly refuses. And now, oh god. Here is perhaps the single worst line I have ever heard in Star Trek. The command that made me jump up in my chair and shout, "No, wrong, bullshit." What is it? What does she say?
Direct hit to the power grid.
Innocent or not, he's going to destroy your vessel.
Captain?
He's come under enough fire from us already.
And then it cuts to Seven. And then it cuts to Seven, as if she is to blame for all of this. What? The man is trying to kill you and your crew, Janeway. Your shields are down. You are defenseless. One more shot and your ship is going to blow up. So what do?
Shields are down. He's shunting all power to his photonic emitters.
We must protect ourselves. Disable his ship.
No!
What? You have a way of disabling his weapons. No one is telling you to blow him to pieces. What kind of decision is this? Don't you have a responsibility to your crew? What the fuck kind of leader are you? This isn't a self-sacrifice for a tough call to preserve a species or something. This is a guy who shot Seven, had nanoprobes in his lab. He is not Jesus Christ. What are you doing? I mean, you're about to roll the dice with over 100 lives here, including poor Naomi Wildman. Forget about her. She's a kid. She's perfectly innocent in all this, and you're just throwing her life away. Coven is literally about to kill you. No bargaining, no discussion. He sees that your shields are down, and he is going in for the kill. You want to see how a real captain deals with people screwing with Starfleet ships and safety? Let's take it from the man himself.
I'm going to eliminate every Maquis colony in the DMZ.
You're talking about turning hundreds of thousands of people into homeless refugees.
That's right. When you attacked the Malinche, you proved one thing, that the Maquis have become an intolerable threat to the security of the Federation, and I am going to eliminate that threat.
But think about those people you saw in the caves. Huddled and starving, they didn't attack the Malinche.
You should have thought about that before you attacked a Federation starship.
God, please get me there. Please get me back to Cisco.
We must protect ourselves. Disable his ship.
No!
Instead of acting like a captain, Janeway tries to coax crazy-ass Coven down, saying that they found info that supports his story. The doctor even says they have evidence that the gun did overload. But that's not true! The nanoprobes simply went into the same pattern you found in the lab when you exposed them to the same radiation from the gun. In fact, you even said that the nanoprobes were regenerating on their own. So Coven could have shot her, which got the probes in his lab, that's why they're on his desk, and then after that he still did the whole strapping her to a table and taking more probes out. Like, what do you mean this is like proof that the gun overloaded? That's like saying, oh, well, when he shot you, your blood dried on the table, and when we were in the lab, your blood like dried again. So therefore it was an accident and he didn't take any blood from you. Like, what the fuck is that? What? That doesn't mean anything. The pattern is just irrelevant. That doesn't prove whether it was intentionally shot or not. Maybe Coven's just sloppy and he didn't clean up after himself. Like, what? But because Janeway is about to literally roll over and end the series and get everybody killed, Coven's ship overloads conveniently and his weapons blow up. The weapons dealer, who had higher standards than Seven at the beginning of this episode and was Mr. Up his butt about getting his tech just right to their specifics and all of the safety crap, somehow managed to blow himself up completely on his own. Voyager never shot at him, they didn't put him in a tractor beam, Voyager never even touched him. What? After Coven dies, Janeway throws a mean mug at Seven, as if Seven had anything to do with Coven's death. Sure, she may not be immediately sobbing at the fact that the idiot blew himself up, but what the fuck is that look for? Whether it's real or not, Seven is living with traumatic memories of Coven assaulting her. That is just What are you looking at her like that? It's not like Seven is jumping up and down with joy, like, yeah! She's just watching it happen. She's just taking in the information. So why are you looking at her like she ripped the guy's head off, Janeway? Christ! And hell, it's not even like Seven is happy about this in private. When she goes to the doctor for a checkup, she notes that she is disturbed by Coven's passing, to which the doctor says it's something they'll both have to live with. Or will he? The doctor takes his program to Janeway and offers to delete the part of himself that allows him to grow outside of his original programming, returning to the blank slate that he was at the start of the series. Wait, why? Why would you do that? Literally. Janeway denies the doctor his request, telling him that this mistake is something he's going to have to live with, to learn from, to become a better person. What specifically does Janeway say?
Captain,
I won't turn back the clock because of one mistake.
I can't live with the thought that I might do it again.
With any luck, that knowledge will prevent it from happening again.
And yet, what's funny is she's giving the doctor this whole thing about, oh, it's a mistake, you'll learn from it. But she doesn't give that to Seven. She just throws a mean mug at Seven. She just goes like, fuck you with her eyes to Seven. In fact, what does she say about Seven?
We all rallied around Seven, Doctor, myself included. I wanted her to know that she was part of this family. That we would support her, fight for her, no matter what.
No, actually. You wanted to turn Seven into, like, your weird daughter. Some little perfect Starfleet, like, just little girl or something. And when she resists that, you treat it like it's her problem, like she's the weird one. When she doesn't develop and act in the way that you want, the traumatized Borg victim, who was part of the collective for 20 years, doesn't meet up with Starfleet standards, you treat her like she's some sort of problem child.
I think we've established that traditional disciplinary actions don't work with you. The question is, what will? There's no doubt in my mind that you believe what you're saying. She's been behaving herself lately.
This episode just ruined my opinion of Janeway, both as a person and as a captain. I don't trust her, ever. No one should. She was willingly about to let everyone die because she hurt a guy's feelings and didn't want to hold him to the most basic level of accountability.
We must protect ourselves! Disable his ship!
No!
It is insane how awful they write Janeway here. I am flabbergasted, utterly gasted, I say. So what are we left with? Retrospect is a story that, honestly, just wants to be one of Star Trek The Next Generation's classic courtroom scenes. It wants to be the drumhead so bad. But instead, it creates a situation that is half sexual assault, half memory repression, half technology kerfuffle, and half condemning the very act of accusations. And that means we're left with a plot that has been drawn and quartered, pulled in so many different directions that all we're left with is a horrible, awful, tangled mess of shit. And speaking of the drumhead, I think there's a very fine comparison to make here.
Have you completely recovered from your experience with the Borg? Being forced to use your vast knowledge of Starfleet operations to aid the Borg?
During your time with the Borg, you were subjected to invasive medical procedures. You undoubtedly witnessed other victims being assimilated. Could that be what you're remembering?
Wow, that's, yeah, when you put it like that, jeez. But it doesn't blame Janeway for anything. Not for being harsh and condescending, not for abdicating her duty to protect her crew, not for, like, just keeping the investigation pure and unbiased by kicking the doctor off when it became clear he's too emotionally attached to it, and not for taking actions that would have prevented Coven from dying. She literally could have stopped him from getting killed by, like, tractor beaming him or just disabling his weapons, and she didn't do it. If Janeway is going to blame Seven for Coven's death, if she is honestly going to say, hey Seven, just the fact that you even accused that guy, sent him off a cliff, then how about we blame you, Janeway, for not disabling his weapons? That is on you. You almost got everybody else killed around you. The whole Voyager ship almost blew up, but we got lucky because he was more incompetent somehow than you. And guess what? Guess what's the cherry on the shit sundae? They never tell us whether Coven was truly innocent or guilty. The whole thing just gets dropped after he's dead. Did he assault her? Maybe. We'll never know. I bet the writers thought they were being so clever. They wanted to leave it up to the viewer's interpretation of the events. But I'm sorry, when it concerns one of your core characters possibly getting traumatically assaulted, you have to clarify whether that happened or not. You can't pull this like Twilight Zone, ooh, what is it? I don't know. You can decide for yourself. It's your own adventure. Ugh.
Surely he'll want to know the truth. That's all we're seeking.
So yes, I find Retrospect insulting on so many levels. It perpetuates the idea that certain people are simply beyond accusations. Besides, Coven had a lot to lose, right? And all we had as evidence were the specific and unclouded memories of Seven, who, while she was shot and did happen to leave some invaluable nanoprobes behind, was being a bit upset. Don't even investigate, don't even try. Seven will get over her memories and feelings. We can't hurt the career of a weapons dealer just because he shot someone and has doomsday probes in his lab. No need to make a federal case about it. And what if he tries to kill you? Well, you did make him pretty uncomfortable. You forced him to try and kill you. What other choice did he have? This is on you. What was he supposed to do? Attempt to prove his innocence? That's a big ask. Better to just accept your deaths at his hands. No. No, no. No, 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 no. No, no, no. All wrong. 0F. See me after class, Voyager, because I'm about to expel you. Holy crap. You know, at the beginning of this video, I said that this felt like getting served a cake made of dog poop, but really, honestly, after going through it all again, I think it's actually more like watching your spouse make a kid eat dog poop. All the while, they just tell them that it's just a brownie. It's a brownie, and if you happen to think otherwise, kid, then you're just trying to cause trouble for everyone who took the time to make that brownie. And all I could do was watch. All I could do was watch as that kid ate that dog shit. It feels gross, infuriating, nonsensical, and so disappointing. By far, no question, this is the worst episode of Star Trek I have ever seen. Is it possible that there are worse ones out there? Sure. But I have no doubt that I will never be as baffled, as enraged, and as upset as this one made me. Up until this point in the show, from seasons 1 to 3, I loved Janeway. But once season 4 came around and she started on this weird warpath to mold Seven into the perfect Starfleet cadet, it just got so much worse. She never did this stuff to Kes, as far as I can remember. Gosh, just... Retrospect is so awful. It is the worst. Anyway, I think I've made my case and then some. This is the only episode that I truly hate, and I hope that now you can understand why. But thankfully, blessedly, it is all uphill from here. Any other Star Trek episodes I review will at least be done with the knowledge that Retrospect is and always will be behind us. So tell me, would you like to see more Star Trek reviews from me? Because honestly, I would love a chance to balance out this negative trash fire with a glowing review of one of my favorite episodes. Hell, I would love to talk about why Threshold is one of my favorites of all time. Unironically, that is my jam right there. So let me know. But until then, I think we can say that this episode of Star Trek Voyager Retrospect has indeed been reviewed to death. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a better episode.
I believe I'm beginning to experience anger. Anger toward Coven.